if there is one thing to take away from this meeting, it is the importance of our primary. A not well understood fact regarding Washoe County School Board election is that in our primary, if a candidate receives 50% plus one vote, they win. There is no general election. So it's important to participate in our primary in order to defeat the extremist candidates that are on the ballot this year. So just remember, 50% plus one vote, that person wins. Now we're going to do something a little different. I'm going to ask everybody to turn off their video for just a few minutes as we go over to a Saturday Night Live video.
Motion passes. The name of Robert E. Lee Middle School will be changed to Robert E. Lee Was Bad Middle School. Now, we know there have been lots of questions about the school district's COVID safety policies, so we open the floor to the public. Ma'am?
Hello, my name is Jane Nordling Smythe. I am concerned and I am also crazy. Let's begin. The Johnson and Johnson are from because of Fauci, okay? And the Fauci is only part of it, but not on T-Mobile, because all of this is about Israel.
Ma'am, do you have a question about the school district's COVID policy or your child's safety?
I don't have a child, and I don't live in this town.
Then you should not be here. Next.
You're watching Lucerne County Community.
Okay, so everybody, that was just to give a little humor as we start off the meeting. I'm sure that our trustees kind of identify with somebody like that. And everybody can go ahead and turn your videos back on. So back in the day, the school board meetings used to be very sleepy affairs, right? Board members talked about facility upgrades, operating expenses, and there was only the occasional public comment. But in the past 2 years, the board meetings have been anything but sleepy. Attendees screaming at board members, death threats, and one previous trustee resigned because of the endless emails, texts, phone calls, and social media messages with all sorts of hateful things. But why? There are a few reasons school boards and politics are overlapping right now. The pandemic turned every parent into a teacher overnight, as virtual learning forced many parents to get much more directly involved with their kids' education. The protests over school reopening plans, mask mandates, racial history, and sexuality. So it is with my deepest appreciation to the 4 trustees that are not giving an inch and are staying in the fight to run again this year. So ladies and gentlemen, I am happy to welcome 4 of our Washoe County School Board trustees. We've got from District B, Ellen Minetto, if you can wave, Ellen. District C, my district, Joe Rodriguez. Say hey, Joe.
Hi, thank you.
District D, Elizabeth Smith. And where are you at? There we go. And then District F at large, Adam Mayberry. So our format will allow each candidate 5 minutes to introduce themselves, and then we're just going to open it up to the audience for questions. We will mute everybody, and if you have a question, raise your hand, and I'll either myself or Mary will call on you, and then you unmute yourself and ask your question. If you don't want to ask the question, live on the Zoom session, you can also tap it or put it into chat, and then Mary will read off the question. So, Ellen, let's go. Lead us off.
All righty. Well, I'm Ellen Minetto. I represent District B. That is, I call it Sparks proper, a little bit up in the Spanish Springs, but not very far. And then all of Sun Valley. And that's especially true to my heart because I taught in Sun Valley for 20 years. About me. Well, I moved here a lot of years ago so I could teach elementary music, which I did for 29 years in our district. I retired 4 years ago while I was running for school board, and I ended up winning and have done that since. And it's been quite a roller coaster, I will say. You know, we started out with, first thing we had to do was look for a new superintendent, because that wasn't working out for us. And then, so we worked on that a while, and then COVID hit, and then we had very many sleepless and tearful nights. Some of you probably recall the many tears at 1 o'clock in the morning at meetings. And then when we decided to open schools, it was terrifying because we didn't know if we were just killing everybody. It was really scary, but it ended up being a good choice. Yay. And then here we are doing this now. The Robert E. Lee was bad middle school. And I love our kids. I taught them I opened Silver Lake, which was more years ago than I want to tell you. I worked at Corbett for 4 years, and then out in Palmer at Sun Valley for 20 years.
Oh.
I have a lot of all music, so that was a blast. A lot of work, but a blast. You know, I was not born a teacher. Some people are born teachers. I was not. I had to learn to be one. But now I can't think of anything else I could have done that would have been more rewarding. I see our students once in a while, like their kids that I taught that work in the district office. And I always go out of my way to see them. There is just a delight for me to see them. I don't know. I taught for a lot of years. So I think my perspective's different because I have that teaching background. Yeah, and that's all I can think of right now. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ellen. We'll go over to District C with Joe Rodriguez.
Hi, thank you, Kim, and thank you everyone for having us here. This is definitely a very important race. I'm sure a lot of people say that, but this is definitely something different. I think Kim, as you said, is no longer the sleepy board anymore. So yeah, just a little bit about me. I moved out here in 2000 with my folks. We moved out here. I've called Nevada, specifically Washoe County, home ever since. Finished high school out here. Started working with the Bureau of Land Management as a wildland firefighter. Attended TMCC, got some other credentials through the fire service. Was also a volunteer firefighter actually in North Valleys there during off season with BLM. Got into the military. Kim, and you and I know are part of the DEMS group there, which is really nice. Yep, go Army.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did a couple of tours, went to Afghanistan, went to Haiti 2010 during the quake. Got into law enforcement in between my deployments there. And now I'm actually very happy and proud to say I'm your assistant state fire marshal. One of the reasons why I looked at getting into the board, thanks, Beth. One of the reasons why I looked at getting into the board in the first place was a time to work in patrol and seeing our at-risk youth, seeing kids that basically school was their safe place for 1/3 of their day. And I loved public service. Reached out to Oscar Delgado when I was living in his ward. Got on 2 boards there. We finally bought our house out in the Spanish Springs area. I looked at getting on the board, continuing that service. Unfortunately, COVID kind of did put a halt to that, but I was eventually able to get on the Sparks Citizen Advisory Committee as an alternate where I still sit. So yeah, when this opportunity came up, I couldn't think of a better board to be on, or a better, political office. I don't like to say the school board's political, but to get into elected office and just bridge more of that at-risk youth. I know one thing that Trustee Smith and I did when we were first appointed, one of our first things, I'm repeating myself, one of the first things we did was actually talk to Awaken and see the see the awareness courses and opportunities they actually bring into our school district, which I think is phenomenal. Human trafficking is very much an issue here in Washoe County. So yeah, I really enjoy seeing some of the things that are coming to light. I know Beth and I have also tag teamed and worked towards telehealth to get that into our school district, which is something that is starting to come to fruition. There's a lot of good things that are happening in our school district. I'd be remiss to say that, yes, we do have our obstacles, no doubt about it. We have areas for improvement. I would rather say we actually have areas for opportunity. So I definitely want to stay here, keep working with my partners here, Beth and Adam and Ellen, of course, and just keep doing the good work that we are doing. So I know we'll get there, and looking forward to this next chapter. So that's pretty much me. I'm also one of the few parents that actually have kids in the district as well. So I understand a lot of the frustration that that we're all experiencing. So yeah, that's Joe in a nutshell.
Okay, thanks, Joe. District D, Elizabeth Smith.
Hi, everyone can call me Beth. It's nice to meet you. I'm Beth Smith. I represent District D, and I am the only mom on the school board. I'm not the only mother, because Ellen is, of course, a mother, but I'm the only mom with children in the district. And I've got 2 little boys that are in the 5th grade and kindergarten. So I'd like to start my time off by explaining exactly how I got here with serving as a trustee and why I want to stay. And it really began when my older son was in kindergarten and a whole bunch of little yellow bumblebees. I was standing in his classroom in kindergarten. It was my first time being in the classroom, and I'm a brand new parent in the district because Braden was only in kindergarten. And there was this bulletin board with all of these little yellow bumblebees, and I mean a lot of little yellow bumblebees, and I was counting them until I got to 45. And that's when I realized that my son was in kindergarten with 45 kids. And there was 2 teachers in one regular sized room, and that's called team teaching. And it was a very rough year. It's not an ideal way for teachers to teach, and it's not a great way for kids to learn. And it's not for lack of trying, because the teachers were phenomenal. They really were. And the kids obviously did their best. And one of those teachers is actually my younger son's kindergarten teacher today. But when I saw that, I realized I needed to be more involved. So I'm generally not the kind of person that complains behind a keyboard. That's not me. So I wondered how I could be more involved. And so I did something that I had never done before, ever. And I wrote a letter to somebody who represented me in government, because the newly elected trustee at the time for District D, she was a mom. I did not know her, but I really felt like she cared. So I wrote her a letter, and she actually emailed me back. And that was Trustee Melina Raymond, for anyone who knows Melina Raymond. And I got to know Melina, and she met with me, and she met with other parents, and we talked about the challenges that the district was facing. And eventually I asked her how I could be more involved, because I did want to be more involved. And that really set me off on a path to really helping all kids. So I served for 4 years on the Zoning Advisory Committee, which was a brand new committee that the district had just started. Zoning previously had not been something that the district did very well. They didn't do it with a lot of transparency or a lot of community input. So this new board created the Zoning Advisory Committee. I was the vice chair the first year, and then I was the chair for the next 3 years. And we went right into all of these communities. We talked with parents, we talked with principals, we talked with everyone, and we made iteration upon iteration of these zoning recommendations, because we had just passed WC1, and now we were building all of these schools. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And not because everybody agreed, because with zoning, you're never going to get everybody to agree. But a funny thing happened. As everyone was heard through the process, there were no more angry people at the board meetings when the decisions were being made. And that's when I really got a feel for what responsive, like accessible representation can feel like. So then flash forward to last summer, I got a phone call from Trustee Kurt Thigpen, who was alluded to earlier in this call. He had been elected in 2020, and he did make the very difficult decision to step down. I did not know him, but he called me up and he asked me personally if I would apply for his appointment. He told me everything that he had been through, so it was eyes wide open. And after giving that some thought, I did apply for the appointment, and I was very, very honored to be chosen. And ever since then, we just get to work. I've met with literally hundreds of parents and teachers and community members to really listen to them, understand what they need, do the work in the background that Joe was just alluding to. That's the one thing that everyone really needs to take away from this, is that there is so much more work and a lot of important influence that happens outside of the broadcast meetings. That's the work that Joe's talking about with telehealth. It's the way that Adam is representing his district related to finals and parent needs. It's the teaching perspective that Ellen brings as well. That's really what it is that we're doing, and we're trying to do our best, except we have a pretty significant issue with extremism right now. So in addition to being a school board trustee, I'll wrap up. I also work at IGT. I've been in gaming for 20 years. I've been with IGT for 15 years. Most of that time was in marketing and communications, but for the past year, I've been their global diversity and inclusion manager, which I find to be a really, really nice overlaid role to my work as a school board trustee.
Okay, thanks, Beth. And our last trustee is Adam Mayberry from District F at large.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you, Kimberly, and thank you, Indivisible Nevada. And I want to give a shout out to my colleagues there, Beth, Joe, and Ellen. None of us knew each other when we ventured on this journey, and I want everybody to know that we work very, very well together. We may not always agree on everything, but always have civil, positive, and very productive discourse. And I appreciate them very, very much. I'm honored to serve with them. And my name's Adam Mayberry. I'm happy to be here. I'm the at-large trustee for District F. As I was telling Kimberly before the call, just very briefly, everybody has two trustees. They have a district trustee, and then they have one of two at-large trustees. And so my district represents the eastern half of the county, everything on the east side of 580 and South Virginia, basically Gerlach to the north, all the way down to Double Diamond and everything, on the east side, all the city of Sparks, Spanish Springs, Hidden Valley, areas around the airport. There's some pockets that go on the other side of I-80 around Wooster High and some of the inner cities of portions of Reno, but it's a pretty substantial area, and I share a lot of my area with Joe and Ellen and Beth. I was appointed as well in November, so I'm the baby brother of the group, and for me, it can you hear me? Am I good? For me, it was I have two daughters in the district, and I've been in the public sector for 30 years, worked for a variety of different public agencies. I currently work for Truckee Meadows Fire. Much of my background, the professional side, is communications, crisis communications, some government affairs. I worked for a member of Congress in Washington. And so I've always felt a call to serve. And so when the appointment came up, I just felt the calling. Something whispered in my ear. It felt like I needed to apply. I certainly didn't do it for my health. Certainly, I love my country, my state, my community, and the constant ugly and false narratives and vitriol was something that really pushed me forward. And I've always felt that I could be somewhat of a voice of reason. And as a dad, Beth says she's the only mom on the district. She is. I'm the only bald single dad on the board. I have two trustees, or two trustees. I have two little girls. No, they're not little. They're freshmen at Spanish Springs High School. But I'm a single parent. I raised them all by myself. So I tell people, I understand the concerns and the fears and the anxieties of a lot of our parents and families. And I also have a hearing impairment. I have a cochlear implant in my right ear, a hearing aid in my left ear. I had meningitis when I was 3 years old, and I lost almost all of my hearing. So I grew up with a significant hearing impairment and a speech impediment. And I could have been pushed aside, but my mom advocated for me. I had some great educators that kept me in the mainstream. And so as a result, our special needs students are very important to me in turn that they get all the resources that they need. So that have deep affection for our special needs population, students. And as Beth and Joe and Ellen will tell you, as we talk through a lot of these issues, ensuring that we do everything we can to improve our academic performance is number one priority, and that means a lot of different things, which I'm sure that we'll be talk about. And so that's just sort of a broad stroke of who I am and what I'm about, and I look forward to talking more here in several minutes. Thank you again for having us.
Okay, great. What we're going to do now is for the remainder of the meeting, we're just going to open it up for questions. So what I would like our audience to do is if you have a question, if you can raise your hand, or you can put something in chat and either Mary or I will read it off. So is there anybody out there that has a question? All right, you guys are all looking for your hands up buttons, right? So I will start, I'll lead off with a question. And this is open to any of our trustees. So how can the school board find a solution to the district labor shortage? Any one of you can chime in.
I guess I'll start.
Okay, Joe.
I wish we had a magic wand. I'll be honest. I think a lot of this has to do with our per pupil funding. Quite frankly, we're the second largest district, and our per pupil funding is, I'll just say it, it's ridiculous. And that's where a lot of this, I believe, is stemming. Now, I know pay and employment shortages is not just something new from COVID. We can't just put it all on COVID. And I know there was an issue beforehand, but also realize that this is also a national issue. I mean, there's bus driver shortages from coast to coast, and I know there's National Guard units that have been activated to drive our buses. I do feel currently with what money we do have, we are showing appreciation for our staff. I know the whole board during our 288 meetings, which is pretty much our collective bargaining agreements that we have with our unions, we're trying to show that, and we're doing that through, we can't call that a COVID bonus, we call it a COVID, help me out guys, stipend or
Differential, COVID differential.
Thank you, Beth. And so we are advocating, and at least with the COVID differential, it shows it's good faith that this current board right now is appreciative of what they're doing. And nothing against Kristen, but one thing I do hear, and I eventually guess that especially all of us who are hearing, current trustees, is that there has to be all hands on deck over and over and over these last couple of years. They're being asked like, hey, just get to fall break, just get to Christmas break, just get to spring break. And I know that's wear and tear on all our staff. So the biggest thing that one thing I pledge to do is that to go to Carson City's next session and not just, well, let's finish with that. Go to Carson City and advocate. Our per pupil funding needs to be increased. That's just one of the ways to go at this. But I'll also say that all options are on the table for me. One thing I'm becoming more open and boisterous about, do we need to amend WC1 to include a small section in there where it covers the daily operations of our schools? Can we look at dipping into there to help advocate and pay all our staff somewhat of a livable, comparable wage? Not even competitive, but comparable. Follow with that. I mean, we need to, this is where I believe it takes a village to raise a child. That includes education. Having and building relationships with our county commissioners, with our city councilmen and women, and more importantly, with our legislators, the people that actually pretty much, for lack of better words, help write that check, building those relationships and advocating and letting them know, and having at least, I know the title trustee doesn't weigh a whole lot, but at least it shows that we're representing Washoe County and that this needs to be addressed. Not, yesterday, frankly. But to go a little bit more on that is showing appreciation. I know that goes a long way with our staff. I know when I do a school board or a school visit, if I try to catch a bus driver and just shake their hand and just thank them, honestly, as a parent and as a trustee, and just let them know heartfelt that we appreciate what they're doing and what they're going through, and their frustration is not being unheard.
Okay, great. Thank you, Joe. Adam, did you want to add something?
Yeah, thank you. I want to make sure I'm not on mute. Yeah, no, thank you. I agree with much of what Trustee Rodriguez pointed out. You know, I guess I want to point out too that talked about the state per pupil funding, and 98.5% of our funding is exit. That's what we get that from the state, and so there's not a lot of wiggle room, and it's absolutely paramount that we work collectively, we work together collaboratively with the teachers, you know, with influencers, and do what we can to really make the 2023 session the education session. And we may not be successful, so we can't just rest our laurels on the legislature, but that really is the answer. Nevada local governments rely tremendously on the state legislature, state funding, namely the school districts do. You know, I think another piece of this is I hear a lot from teachers about just the needless requirements, you know, whether it be evaluations, just the constant obstacles that they face to really prevent them from getting the job done. And we need to remove a lot of those obstacles, a lot of those barriers, the bureaucracy, red tape. And, you know, there's a constant narrative in our nation today about education, the state of education, and teachers, you know, teachers unions, you know, whatever the case may be. That's really, I think, dragging the public education and that profession down. And so we really need to begin to create some better messaging and really accentuate the positive and lift up our teachers. Ultimately, I think it's going to rest largely at the legislative level in 2023. And I think you know, we got some good folks behind us, some lobbyists that can really, I think, bring a lot of this home. So those are some of my thoughts.
Okay, thanks, Adam. I would like to remind the group that Beth is going to have to leave us at 4:45 because of another commitment. So I'm just going to throw a question at her that came from Pharrell. He wants to know, how do you plan to deal with teacher demoralization and burnout?
Absolutely. And I'd like to, if possible, I'd like to also tie that into Vivian's question in the chat, because she has a really good one there too. So burnout's a real serious issue. We're not paying teachers what they're worth. I know of no profession anywhere that requires as much very expensive higher education, master's, doctorates, and yet is paid the way that it is, particularly in the state of Nevada. So there's a certain reality about what it is we can pay them. Something that I do feel a little bit differently about is that it's okay to show the cracks in the system. If we just keep being creative and if we just keep finding ways to make it work, we are really letting the state level legislators kind of off the hook. They should absolutely see that we do not have bus drivers. They should absolutely see that we can only vacuum our schools once a week because we cannot pay these people. And not because I like this. As a mom, I loathe this. As a trustee, I loathe it. But absolutely, they should see the cracks in the system because it's really coming down from that level. So when we talk about demoralization, we know that we should be paying them more. So what are the things that we can control? One of the things that we can control, and I know everybody on this call, all the trustees are on board with this, and I have personally discussed this with the incoming superintendent, Dr. Enfield, is we need to do a very serious audit of what we are requiring teachers to do. We are killing them by death with 1,000 paper cuts. There's layers of bureaucracy, paperwork, way too many kids in their class. The way that we're also staffing schools needs to be looked at. We have wonderful, wonderful roles that are called teachers on special assignments. They do a bunch of different really, really great jobs that I fully believe in. However, I don't believe we should be filling those roles until we have filled all the classroom teachers for a school. So the things that we can be doing is listening to the feedback of teachers, reviewing what it is we're asking them to do, finding efficiencies in that work, filling the roles of classroom teachers before we start filling specialty positions. And I don't mean specialty like speech pathologists, things like that. I'm talking about other specialty roles like teachers on special assignments. But that is a way to really, really hear them and respect them. Another thing that we can do is support them. And this is where I'm going to tie it into Vivian's question. Great question, Vivian. For those of you not looking in the chat, she was saying outside of pay, how are the extremists, which is really what we're here to talk about, really creating issues? These teachers are being lied about. We have parents, and in some cases a student, coming to board meetings lying about what teachers are saying in the classroom. We have teachers who try to come to board meetings to give their public comment. Their license plates are photographed. Their badges, they are asked who they are. They are being harassed and they don't come. Extremists are demanding that cameras be placed in the classrooms. One of our current trustees believes that there should be the equivalent of, a poll monitor. They believe that parents, grandparents, any community member should be able to sit in the back of the classroom to identify and catch indoctrination when it's happening. These are the things that our teachers are hearing, seeing, and feeling, and it is a full-on assault. And it's absolutely demoralizing. All of that is demoralizing. So that's kind of my tied up between both of those questions. Not sure if anyone wants to jump in on that, but that's my way of bringing those two together.
I'll jump in on that real quick, if I can just jump in on that. And Trustee Smith is absolutely right. And what it does is it prevents involvement. I mean, who wants to attend a public meeting when this is what they have to face? So the optics are that there's this majority, but we know better.
Okay, thanks, Beth and Adam. I see that Bill Chan has his hand raised. Bill, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Thank you. I mostly just wanted to say thanks to all the trustees here. Bill Chan with now Senator Cortez Masto's campaign team. I've talked with or worked with most of you guys, at least from when I was with the Sender's official office. But just really wanted to make sure you all felt the support from me and our team and the Sender. And we've talked at length about just the sheer insanity that you all have to deal with. So that does not go unnoticed, and your willingness to stay in the fight and be that firewall for the sane and rational people of our community. So thank you. My question is, with the superintendent search, what were your personal priorities for our new superintendent?
So Ellen, are you okay with answering that question?
Personal. For me, longevity meant a lot to me. That was a question I asked. Thank you for the question, by the way. Every single candidate, what has been your occupation the last 10 years? And several people had a lot. And there was only one that said one. And so that was huge to me. And just the knowledge of the job. We need somebody who hits the ground running right now. So that's what I thought.
Okay, thanks, Ellen. I see that Anna Vermillion has your hand raised. You can go ahead and unmute yourself, Anna, and ask your question.
I have a couple questions just to get up to speed. How many total districts are there, school districts are there in Washoe County?
7, sort of. So you have 5, sure, and I'll explain that. There are 5 districts, A, B, C, D, and E. And those each represent smaller, discrete areas of Reno and Sparks. Those are more concentrated areas of the county. Then you have Dr. Diane Nicolette and you have Trustee Adam Mayberry, and they're both at-large trustees. So the entirety of Washoe County is cut down the middle. Dr. Nicolette has one side and Trustee Mayberry has the other side. So few people realize that they actually have two trustees, one for your more smaller concentrated area of the county, and then another one that serves the entire side that you happen to be on.
That's great. I'm also curious, is the board cohesive in fighting extremism, and are just the 4 districts that are up for appointment, election,
I would say
representation?
the 6 of us are very cohesive and we're incredibly different. So this is where I'd like to make a very important distinction, is that this is not a politics issue and it's not a perception or perspective issue. We have different ones of those among the 6 of us. This is exclusively an extremism issue, which is a threat to all of those things. So the other 6 of us, so 4 of us are up for election right now, and then there are 3 seats that are not up for election. But the main body of the 6 of us work very well together, which does not mean that we always agree. We have rigorous and thorough dialogue, and we very often land on different sides of things, even though we care just the same. That's exactly the way governance should work. The way that we work together is we recognize and we combat misinformation, or as I'm frequently calling it, lying. You know, misinformation for me, no, I'm serious. And here's
Oh, what it is, I agree.
Misinformation is oftentimes maybe there's not intent there, or you can be reasoned with the person and perhaps they'll change their position once they understand more. When I know factually that someone knows that this information is incorrect, yet persists in putting it out, that's no longer just being misinformed, that's lying. And so we're dealing with a very serious lying issue. And, you know, we all have different ways of coping with it, but you'll see me on that mic. I correct the record on a very regular basis. As much as possible so that it doesn't stand on the record. But I can tell you what happens with the speakers that come on, and then with one of our trustee colleagues, they do it so that even though it's not correct, they get a little snippet in that video, and then that gets perpetuated on and on and on, even though one of us has just corrected the record immediately thereafter. So a lot of it is used to create, you know, lying reels, pretty much.
Yeah, I'll give you a disclaimer. I'm a senior citizen and a widow and had no children, but education is paramount. And it seems to me that we are lacking accountability. I think a lot of that is due to what I consider our digital existence to be rather inauthentic. But I'm curious if you guys just have a huge fight on your hands. You do. And
it's a winnable fight. It's a winnable fight because everyone's really waking up to the influence of this. This is happening nationally. And I'll give you an example. If you want to watch something that's very interesting, Google the radio show that Robert Beatles did with Steve Bannon. And you'll see how the issues in Washoe County are really being played out across the country. This is a national playbook with extremists to really take over local government, county commission, city councils, school boards, and to really alter the trajectory of communities through local government. But so far, I think Washoe County is doing a really good job of getting to the bottom of this and becoming aware. And it's my sincere hope that the votes in June and then in the general election will reflect that.
Okay, thank you, Anna, and thank you, Beth. I think that you have to step away for your next meeting. We appreciate your participating with us. So
I have a
that was good input.
if I can.
Yes, go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah, so part of what I didn't understand till really the leadership group explained it to me about why it's so important to address this now, even though we think of the elections being in November is that the way Washoe County voters are right now, a lot of people are kind of disgusted with the partisan narratives and all the rabid rants that you all endure. And so they're registering differently as voters, as nonpartisan voters. And because of the way our primaries are structured, a lot of times the nonpartisan voters don't actually cast their votes in the primary because they have fewer things to vote for. And so then that's the problem right now, is that some of these very mobilized extremist groups could show up in force in the primaries and not even allow the rest of the county to vote for the trustees that we want. So it's really important for everybody to understand that the primary vote is really important, because if they get 50+1, then that seat would be decided by a very, very tiny group of people, and we shouldn't have that because we know where they're coming from. Sorry.
Okay. Never say sorry. Okay, thanks, Vivian. So Pablo, I saw that you had your hand raised.
Give me 1 second. So, good question. So, because of extremists, there's the list. They got information from Fox News or then a Newsmax that telling them to come in school board meeting, harass, to get a political point, because they want to do some Twitter. They want to like to gain political points. Then they want to scare a school board. It seems like they're working, because we have one trustee named Kirk Kingpin who was resigned last year because of extremist, being harassed, intimidation, all kinds of stuff. And we got one extremist school board member named Jeff Church. He lying is he tried to align his colleagues, the teacher and staff. And I did this is Reno. If you want to look up thisisreno.com. So there you
Yeah,
go.
excuse me for interrupting, Pablo, but do you have a question for one of our trustees?
Yes, I'd like to say we need how to motivate voter to get vote for you.
So how to motivate voters to vote for you. So Ellen, Adam, Joe, one of you want to jump in?
Sure, I'll take a shot. Well, one, I think that goes more into campaigning, just get on the ground and knocking on doors. Honestly, I feel get more people to vote for us. I think as a board, as a trustees, we're especially us newer trustees. Nothing against Ellen. But I love you, Ellen. You know that. It's almost like a new generation of trustees. We may not be retired. Actually, the three of us, we are working. We have full-time jobs. We have kids in the district. One thing I try to tell people, I am literally just that average guy next door, like literally. I'm not a career politician by any means. I don't even feel like we really have to sell ourselves so much as just advocate what it is we're currently doing. We are currently building schools. We are currently addressing all these issues. Just as Trustee Smith said earlier, we're doing a lot of work right now. And there's a lot of stuff behind the doors that are happening outside the boardroom that we're addressing a lot of these issues. And I say maybe that's where we fall short, is that we don't get that out enough. And I think if more people hear and see that, that would probably motivate a lot of people. Like, hey, these guys are actually currently doing it. They're not crazy wackadoodles. They're not indoctrinating our kids. They're not, secretly jabbing our kids, is what a lot of the lies are going on right now. So maybe that's where we fall short, is just getting that message out more. I think that's probably the biggest thing I can think of. I don't know, Ellen, Adam.
Well, I'll jump on that real quick. First of all, and just to clarify, and Vivian hit a good point, I just want to remind everybody that our races are nonpartisan. They will be on your primary ballot, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. On those closed primaries, you still will see the school trustees. So be very mindful of that. You will be able to vote for districts B, C, and D, and F. I think I got all the letters right. Sometimes I'm even a little confused. But anyways, that's really important. It's a nonpartisan race. And yeah, we when we knock on doors, when we talk to people, I still encounter people that say no CRT. They talk about their these items, whether it's gender neutral, LGBTQ, these issues that frankly are not part of a curriculum in the Washoe County School District. They're just simply not. They get sort of propagated with this national narrative. We're tied into that. If the opposition does anything well, it's really being very loud and, you know, propagating their narrative. And we hear that a lot, and, you know, we have to correct it. I think we just need a lot of support on both sides. I have a lot of, you know, conservative Republicans that recognize what's happening and that are supporting this. Conversely, I have a lot of progressive Democrats. So this is the type of issue that shouldn't be a partisan issue. It's a human issue. I'm running as a nonpartisan. I am registered as a nonpartisan, and that's something that you know it is unique in a sense that it's a growing segment of the voters, and you know, certainly, you know, there's some sides that have that embrace education a little differently, but it does take a village, and it takes all of you to tell your friends, to tell your neighbors, and to really lift, you know, our education system up and not bring it down. Joe Hart did a really good story on Channel 4 last night that you might have heard about the movement that really is trying to put politics into the school system. They'll deny it, but as soon as they deny it, they talk about putting conservatives on the board. And frankly, I think their idea of conservatives are different than some other folks that have, you know, conservative ideologies. So I don't want to pontificate, but those are some of my thoughts. It's a challenge. It's not easy. It's not easy.
Okay, great. Thanks, Adam. We're getting close to the top of the hour, so we're going to take one last question from Lynette. Lynette, make sure you unmute yourself, and we'll toss this one over to Ellen unless you wanted to give it to somebody specifically.
I'm just so interested in this conversation, and you four may not know us, Indivisible Northern Nevada, very well, but one of the things we do have done very well in the last 2 election cycles is help get the vote out. And so I guess I'm curious how you think that's going in your own campaigns. Are you reaching the people that need to be reached? And you said you're looking for support. What kind of support would be most meaningful?
I'm probably not the one to ask. I am a terrible campaigner. I will go door to door. I will talk to people. I will try to squelch the let me tell yous, because there's a lot of let me tell you what's really going on in the district when because that's what they heard from them, and that's what they heard from them, or they read it on social media, which we know how valid that is. Word of mouth is everything. I think you know, talking to your neighbors, talking to the people at church, talking to it's everything, you know, that spreading the word that the Lemmys are mistaken, that's not what we are not teaching CRT, at least not the way it was originally designed. And don't go with catchphrases and catchwords, because that's not CRT. And the LGBTQ lesson is one lesson in the entire 4 years of high school that you have to opt into. It's not like when we're teaching math, we're talking about for LGBTQ kids and for, you know, that's not how teachers teach. So I think it's word of mouth. Now, Adam and Joe, you probably have other marvelous ideas.
Oh, yeah, no, honestly, help comes in many forms. I obviously, I hate to say it, but money's a part of that. I think money, every dollar is a flyer, every dollar is a letter out to a voter, every dollar is a button. I mean, every little bit helps. Honestly, I think for me, for my race, obviously people on the ground. I know that it's easier for someone to give $20 than it is to give someone to give 20 minutes on a weekend, which I can understand. Time's worth more than money sometimes. But anyone that's willing to volunteer and help, I would greatly appreciate it. That would mean a lot. And obviously, just a little bit that people do, and I've been seeing more and more of it. And I want to encourage people to do this. This debunk people on social media, people that go on RGJ and Channel 4 on Facebook that sit there and say, "Oh my God, CRT is in every school." People that are speaking up about that is phenomenal. I'm seeing more and more of it, and I want to encourage everyone to look at that and obviously just hit them with facts. I think that's great, and that someone replies and they see that reply and just kind of builds and builds and builds. It's phenomenal. So seeing that support out there, that to me, that I smile when I see that, honestly. So, but
Joe,
yeah,
put your website in chat so people have it. Ellen, if you have a website, put yours in there as well.
Sure I did. I'll do it again though. But thanks, Adam.
Okay. And yeah, and remember my district, not to minimize Joe and Ellen's, because I love them dearly and we're working together. But my district it's about 4 times the size. So for me, boots on the ground is absolutely paramount. And campaign contributions, it was so hard for me to ask for money when I started this, but it's gotten easier. But campaigns are expensive. It is what it is, and all of you know that.
We certainly do. And thank you so much. Thank all of you for coming. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, and keep in mind, once all of you are reelected, and if you do decide to hit up the legislature for additional monies for the schools, please reach out to Indivisible Northern Nevada, because we can mobilize a posse to help you out. And Joe's got all my personal information, so he knows what to do. All right, so this has been a fantastic Zoom session with our trustees. I so appreciate your taking the time to join us and join your community and talk about yourselves and answer some of our questions. At the top of this, I had mentioned the one thing that you need to remember about this meeting is that you need to vote in the primary, and you need to get your neighbors to vote and everybody to vote. Because if a candidate wins 50% plus 1 vote, they win. It does not go to a general election. So remember that.
Kimberly, I'd like to say one other thing, and that is that you all may not be aware, but absolutely every voter in Washoe County gets a paper ballot in the mail. So everyone gets a mail-in ballot. It is so much easier for people to vote with mail-in ballots. So just keep that in mind. Know that voting doesn't involve going any place. You can do it in your living room.